Thank you guys so much for having me here. I'm really honored. I love BeerCon, and I'm so glad that you invited me, and accidentally I've turned into the opening talk. Yay! So thank you, and welcome. Let me just go to my slides here. First of all, I was wondering, I'm not sure if I can see all your chat or whatever, but maybe just for you, if you could just make an estimate of what you think a glass of water like this would approximately weigh. So if you know what I'm getting at here, because you've already seen the title of the talk, please don't spoil it for everyone else. But if you've no idea what I'm talking about, please just in your head or maybe in the chat, make an estimate of what you think a glass of water like this would approximately weigh. And what I'm getting at is going to be explained later in the talk, but for now, just keep that in mind. And I'm interested to see if you know the answer or not. A little bit about me. I'm actually not like most people in this field, not really schooled in information security. I'm actually a criminologist. I've studied criminology. I have a master's degree at the Amsterdam University, already over a decade ago, so you know, certain generation. And I'm a CISO for the Dutch Authority for Consumers and Markets, which is a regulatory authority in the Netherlands. We regulate consumers and markets, so we make sure there's no illegal cartels. We make sure that consumers' rights are properly protected. And I'm their CISO, so I'm more, focused on the security of our own organization, and of course of civil, all the information of the government that we have. I love Infosec. I've been working in this industry for over 10 years in different jobs, different organizations. And through these years, I've actually learned quite a few things that I think might be valuable for others and that you'd like to hear. And maybe there's some lessons there that you can take from that. So that's why I've sent in this talk. And the first story I'm going to talk to you about is quite a while ago. It was actually my first job. I used to work for the Dutch Police Department in Amsterdam. I was working for the serious crime unit and the financial crime unit as an internet specialist. And as an internet specialist, my job was mainly OSINT, open source intelligence, but also looking through log files, all sorts of information that might lead to an arrest or solving crime. And one of the first cases I was on, I went to this team and I noticed that they were Googling things a lot, which is kind of a good thing. But if you look at the way they were Googling, you could quite tell from the referrer what these referrers were quite specific. I'll give you an example in a minute. So I talked to the team and I told them, you might not want to search Google for these specific terms because the website owners that you end up visiting can see these things. And they can also see the IP address. And those IP addresses from the computers that they were using, they would just end up, when you looked at the domain or the IP registration, they would just end up looking at the Utrecht Police Department. Which we were Amsterdam, but hey, tomatoes, it's pretty clear it's a police computer, so you might not want to do that. So I talked to them about that, said, if there's anything you want to Google in this case, I'm your internet specialist, feel free to come by, let me know and I'll have a look. And they, in this case, they found, they did a house search and they found a key that had a label on it. And the label had an address on it. I don't know, it's like Village Street 6 or something. And of course, even though I talked to them, I told them not to Google it, they actually did. And what they found was a website from a real estate agent that was letting a storage unit next door. So they Googled Village Street 6, but that wasn't available. What was available was a storage unit for the same street, but number 4, for example, so the one right next to it. And this website that was owned by this real estate agent, of course, could see the referrer. So when you are a webmaster, you look at the statistics of your website and you want to find out how people ended up on your website, and you can see that someone looked for Village Street number 6, and you know that you led this to a very, very well-known criminal, because of course that's not something you tend to forget. So you know this is a criminal that hires this storage unit, and you know it's number 6. So when you look at the statistics of your website and you see someone is Googling specifically for the number 6, that's interesting to you. And you might want to zoom into that, and which is obviously what he did. And we were, as a police department, we were thinking there might be weapons in the storage unit. And we had good indications of that because people were talking about it on the phone. This is, again, way back. This is 10 years ago. These days, I mean, criminals are not always as intelligent, but I'm not sure they still talk over the phone as clearly about weapons as they did in those days. But we had good indication that there were going to be weapons in the storage unit that we found. But however, by the time we got there, the storage unit was completely empty. Like, they even almost swept the floor for us. There was nothing there. And we later found out that, as I predicted, the webmaster had seen that we had been looking at the Village Street number 6, while that was not available, and it hadn't been available for over a year. And he knew it was led to a criminal. So he just warned him. He said, the police department's going to go look for your storage unit. I've seen it on my website. They're looking for you. Don't get everything out as soon as you can, which he did. So what my point is, telling you this story, is that behavior is quite a hard thing to tackle. And I think if you've been working in information security for a while, you've noticed this just as much as I have, that you can tell people not to do something. Think about clicking links in phishing emails, right? If you know me, excuse me, then you know how I feel about phishing emails and fake phishing emails. But, just telling people not to do something in security, yeah, good luck with that. I mean, just assume they're not going to listen to you, because most likely they won't. Another story I'd like to share with you is this one. I've been working for a certain organization for a while, and we suffered a WhatsApp phishing attack. Now, to make things clear, WhatsApp in the organization I was working for was not used for work reasons. It was just there for social reasons. And I had warned that this kind of thing could have happened before. Again, this is a behavior thing. People tend to not listen to you when you tell them not to use it for work purposes, and they might just do that. And what had happened was a couple of people from my organization were targeted through email, telling them, I am the board member of your organization, please give me your WhatsApp phone number. And once they did, they got either a link, no, they didn't get a link, they got a text message for the verification code of the WhatsApp they used, so their account could have been taken over, or they were told to go get an iTunes gift card from a shop. So this was obviously not an advanced persistent threat or APT. This is just some petty criminals. But hey, sometimes that's all it takes. And a few of our people had fallen for this. So I was called to the leaders of the organization, and they told me, you're our CISO or your security person. Please give us advice. What should we do? And I said, well, if we don't use it for any work purposes and it's just for social reasons, then why do we not just block and ban WhatsApp altogether from our work phones? We don't actually need it. It's an unnecessary risk to our organization. People can use the phone if they want to talk to each other. We can find a more secure app if they want to talk about work stuff. But please, if you want to prevent this kind of issue, just block and ban WhatsApp from our phones. Technically, we can do this. We have work phones that are managed, so please do this. And what they said was, we can't. I'm sorry, Fleur, we cannot do this. It's too useful. We use it all the time as a board of this organization. We need it in order to tell each other that we're waiting downstairs for lunch, or we need it for all sorts of, reasons other than work. it's too useful. I'm sorry, we cannot block it. And I said, well, in that case, why not use Signal or something else? Yeah, well, other people don't use it, so it's not useful. We need WhatsApp because that's the most used app. And I struggled with this for a while. When I went home, I was like, well, this is going to happen again. And next time it's going to be worse because these were a couple of petty criminals, wanting to get us to get some iTunes gift cards. But next time it's going to be an APT, and then we're pretty much screwed. I struggled with it for a while, and then I thought, you know what? This is actually not my responsibility. It really isn't. I'm just an advisor, and I've told them this is not very smart thing to do. I've given them all the information they needed to make an intelligent decision, and they've decided to go the other way. And that's fine. I mean, I'm not the leader of this organization. I don't have that kind of responsibility. So why is this bothering me so much? If things go wrong, all I have to say is, I've told you this. You didn't want to listen. You're responsible. And I think this is something, I'm going to get back to this in a little bit, that we might want to, get back to a little more often in our field, because we care. We care a whole lot. And that's a good thing, but it also messes us up sometimes. And then there's another story that I wanted to share with you, and that's we were going to buy I specifically am not telling you which organization I worked for when this happened, because first of all, it doesn't matter, and second of all, I don't want to get into trouble. But I was working for one of the organizations I've worked for in the past, and we were going to get a security incident and event management system, a SIEM. So yeah, there's different ways of pronouncing that word. Security incident and event management system, right? I'm not going to say it all the time like that. I just call it a SIEM. So we needed this system for obvious reasons, and we went to a vendor that we had purchased stuff from in the past, and we said, well, we need this, please build it for us. And we have quite specific requirements, so it can be like a off-the-shelf solution. It had to have some specific use cases in it. And pretty soon, it became clear to me that they could not provide what we needed. I asked for a Splunk instance because I wanted to be able to look into the SIEM myself. I wanted to have certain rights in Splunk so I could make, slight changes in the use cases, change thresholds if I felt it was necessary, that kind of thing. They could not provide me with that. It seemed that they were struggling with all sorts of, to me, quite simple questions, and a lot of it was pushback. We can't do this. We don't want to do it, or it's going to cost you more money, even though we had a fixed price. So we were struggling, and I pretty early on said, I think we should move on. I think we should change vendors or go look for a solution somewhere else because they can't provide. But the CIO and the IT manager that were also involved with this project, they told me, no, we've already invested so much money into this. You just gotta have to have some faith and give them a little bit more time. And I said, I'm sorry, I just can't see it. They don't have the knowledge that is needed to do this. And then after, I think it was 2 or 3 years, that's how long they took to make this SIEM. And they came to us, they gave us the final demo. And I will, for the rest of my life, remember the very first line that this, bless his heart, salesperson or demo person said at this final demo. And he said, and I quote, "Whatever expectations you had, cut them in half." So I was like, okay, well, this is not good because my expectations were already quite low. And it turned out I was right. And so was he. Because we said initially we want 15 use cases. I think that's quite, small for a SIEM, but we said we might want to build on that. But we want at least 15 use cases, and we specified them. And we got 5, and 3 worked. And worked is a term I will use loosely here. It was not actually measuring what I had anticipated or expected that use case to measure, and it was actually not very useful either as a use case for a SIEM. So what I've learned from this is that sometimes there's just nothing you can do. I mean, we, as the security people, we tend to break our brains over things. We keep on trying to get certain things implemented, and we can see what's going wrong, and you can scream it from the top of your lungs, and you can tell everyone and do whatever you want, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do. It will go wrong because there are just people that will not listen or just let it go wrong. And how do you deal with that is something that we're gonna talk about, because in security, as you probably already know, a lot of the things we run into is that we cost a lot of money, but the results of what that money has been spent on are almost invisible. So the funny thing is, if you spend a lot of money on security, actually nothing happens. But that's the point. We want nothing to happen. We want everything to go smoothly. And it's going smoothly because you spend money on it. But if you don't spend money on it, then things might go wrong. But they might not go wrong for a very long time. It might take a while before it goes wrong, but eventually it will. And we as security people, we know this, but of course management and people around us might feel differently. They might say, well, you know, you want me to spend all this money on a SIEM, but we don't have a SIEM now, and we're fine. Yeah, that's because you can't see what's happening on your network because you don't have a SIEM. So that's one of the troubles that I've noticed that we all tend to run into. And like I said earlier, we all care. We care a lot. We care about your security. So of course I've used this line because it's kind of like a thing we hear a lot from salespeople. Your security is important to us. So that's why I kind of tongue-in-cheek use it here. But for us, security people, the security of the organization we work for is actually important. We really care. And sometimes I think we care too much. Sometimes we should just take a step back and go, hey, it's your company, it's your organization, it's your decision. Of course, you can only do this if you don't have any contractual clauses that say you're responsible for anything. My advice would also be never to sign such a contract unless you also get a budget and mandate, because there's no such thing as responsibility without budget or mandate in my eyes. But hey, that's a whole different topic. But that's my thing. My point here is we care a lot, and that's good, but it's sometimes we care too much. And another issue that we tend to run into is that people, I'm already laughing, people tend to find that we are doom thinkers. We are people that always assume the worst. And I'm laughing because that's what you pay us for. You pay us to assume the worst, right? It would be bad in security to always assume the most positive outcome of things. This is inherent to a job that we do that's about risk. And risk is you know, inherently something that's not assuming the most positive outcome. It's actually assessing the most likely outcome, you know, impact versus probability. And, you know, that means there is no such thing as a positive risk in security, right? So, so we tend to be made out as doom thinkers in our organization, where we yell fire, but no one sees the smoke. That's, yeah, that makes our job harder, because when people do listen to us, again, nothing happens. And that's actually the good thing. But when they don't, and something does happen, they look at us and go, why did you not warn me? So that's something I'm going to get back to in a bit as well. And we are always seen as blocking. You know, security says, no, we can't do this because security is blocking this project. I can go into this for ages, but of course we know this is usually because we get involved right at the very end of a project, and they go, well, look at our perfectly beautiful design. Please say it's perfect from security standpoint, and we just look at it and go, my God, what a dumpster fire is this? And then we say, well, you're not going to want to do it this way. And they go, well, we already built it. So yeah, there's that. Stop blocking us. Please think from a business standpoint, which is quite hard if you're only involved at the end of a project. And I've also noticed that we get very little praise, again, because if we do our jobs well, nothing happens. everything works as designed, everything works as you want it to work, because we do our jobs. And no one, when everything works as it's supposed to, feels the need to go to your security or even your IT people and go, pat on the back, you've done a great job. Whilst when things go wrong, we're the first people they knock on the doors of. And that makes our jobs, I think quite hard. Where if you have a job where you make like a product and the product's done and it looks all pretty and shiny and perfect, then everyone will go, wow, look what a great job you've done. Well, when we do a great job, nothing happens. And another thing, and I think this is the single most important reason why so many Infosec people get a burnout or depression or that kind of thing, is because it's very hard to prioritize in security, right? So every single detail is important. If you miss one little configuration mistake or one little bug or whatever in the code, that's all it takes to get your entire organization ransomware. And I know this is a kind of cliche because, of course, there's you put layers in your security and you have different measures and technical and awareness and everything. But still, sometimes it's just one little detail that you've missed that can get your entire organization hacked or ransomware or broken. And we know this. And that's why it's very hard for us when things are brought to us to make a priority list of what should I do first? What's the worst thing I need to tackle right now? Because everything is important. And that thing that you thought was not important might actually end up being the downfall of your organization, to be a very doom thinker. And I think I find in my job, that's one of the hardest things, because I know when I skip something or when I park something and go, I'll get back to that later because I have something more important right now, and that thing becomes the thing that causes a lot of issues, I'm going to have to explain to others that will go, why did you not do something about it? It was right there. Yes, because I had this whole entire other list of things that was also right there. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons we get so many burnout and depression in our field. So how do you deal with these things? Well, I'm not an expert in that sense, but I do have some tips that might be useful to you. And I'm not saying it's the answer to everything. And of course, that's 42. You all know this, but like I said earlier, just when things get too much, it's not all your responsibility. There's co-workers, there's your board, there's your management, there's your CEOs. It's not all you. And sometimes it might feel that way, but it really isn't. And please remind yourself sometimes that it isn't. And what might help is because like I said earlier, we don't get a lot of praise. So maybe it can help to make your work more measurable, to document what you do on a daily basis, to write reports about your security team or the work you do for your security team, or show them statistics of the incidents that you've responded to, the evaluations that you've planned, or the policies that you've changed. Make it more measurable, because that way people will more easily see all the things you've done, and it might help you get some praise that you clearly might deserve. I'm just going to say you're not superhuman. This is a response to the part I said about prioritizing. There's only so much you can do. You are one person or you are one team. Usually security people tend to cope with capacity issues. Just remind yourself you're not superhuman, and all people can actually say to you when things go wrong is that you've done all that was in your power to do, and you cannot be expected to do any more than that. Like I said earlier, make sure you document the things you do. Whatever effort you put into things actually matters more than perfection, in my view at least. When it comes to projects, this is of course a very open door, but as to be involved from the beginning, we always obviously do, but I think sometimes Infosec people are too modest, and they say, well, I'll get back to your project when there's a design or something like that. And I think it might be better if you notice that this is causing you trouble, to get more involved. And I think a little bit of this is also acceptance. So you're going to have to accept that things just are the way they are in Infosec sometimes, and there's not very much you can do about it. And I would like to semi-end my talk with this quote from a person. This quote you've probably already seen a lot of times. It's from a former FBI, I think it's a director, but I really love it. Security is always too much until the day it's not enough. Now, in the beginning, I'll talk to you. It says questions, but I have 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna speed through it. And if you have more questions, feel free to ask them on Twitter, or approach me on LinkedIn, whatever you want. I'm gonna show you my Twitter handle in a little bit. But in the beginning of the presentation, I asked you to kind of make an estimate of what a glass of water like this would weigh. And it's a trick question, obviously, because this is not even a picture I took myself. If you know this, then good for you. But it's a very old story about a teacher that goes to a class, and he has a glass of water in his hand, and he says, "How much does this glass of water weigh?" And obviously, you get students saying all sorts of weights. And then in the end, he says, "Well, actually, the accurate weight of this glass of water is not important. It doesn't matter, because if I hold this glass of water in the air for like 5 minutes or minutes, it doesn't matter what it weighs. But if you try to hold on to the glass of water for longer than 5 minutes, it's going to be heavier and heavier and heavier. And if you hold it for over an hour, it's going to be almost impossible to keep it in the air any longer, because it's going to be so heavy." And that's the same with certain things in info security if you deal with them mentally. And it's helped me immensely. All you have to do when it gets to be too much is to put the glass down, and the weight of it will be off your arm. And it's the same with these issues that you might be struggling with. If it gets too much and you notice there's nothing you can do, people won't listen to you, you can't get anything to change, then what's the point of keep holding on to the glass, right? There's no point. Just put the glass down and move on. And that's what I would like to give to you as surviving security. Again, I'm sorry you're not going to be able to ask any questions. I can't really see them, I think, anyway, because I can't see the chat. I only see the Beer Farmers chat from Zoom, so I'm sorry about that. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them on Twitter. There's my handle, and you guys have a great con, have a good time, don't drink too much beer, and I'd like to meet you in person one time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was awesome. And a shout out to you putting up with our shenanigans as we tried to make this all work. We're going to say goodbye to you.